The Fast and the Furious, or Too Fast Too Furious, or Fast and Furious, or even Fast 5, whatever you want to call this series of films, I think most of us can agree that this series, based on fast cars, loose women, and egomaniacal petrolheads, should have ended after the first installment. Yet the series strangely manages to hold a large fan base, and thus the world is not only cursed with the same film being released under a slightly different title every other year or so, but we are also cursed with game developers trying their hands at recreating this madness in video games. Thus, I present to you today my review of the action racing game Fast and Furious Showdown for the PlayStation 3. I'm going to be completely honest here, when it comes to the movies I'm pulling an almost complete blank on what actually takes place. It's usually something to do with an undercover cop and him trying to earn his stripes by racing some bad guys and thus earning the top man's trust, or someone seemingly dying and thus revenge is in order. There's usually some guns, money or drugs thrown in there somewhere to push the storyline along a little. Now the reason I'm telling you this is because to follow the game's story, the developers expect you to know the first 5 movies like the back of your hand.
O'Connor and Toretto built a team for Rio. How do we know Shaw's crew isn't just another one of theirs?
Different profiles.
You see, according to the back of the game's box, this game fills in the narrative gaps in the first 5 movies, and unless you know the movies very well, you're going to be completely lost in terms of what is actually happening. And so with this knowledge in mind, you will understand if I struggle when it comes to relaying what the story actually is in this game. Let's just say I'll try my best. So at the beginning we are introduced to Riley Hicks, an agent who is found rummaging around an office by Monica Fuenta. When questioned about what she is doing, Hicks tells Fuenta that she has been sent to speak with Agent Luke Hobbs regarding an operation he has been involved in. The game then starts from this point with Fuenta filling in Hicks with information regarding the operation. Basically there is a crew of drivers headed up by former SAS Major Owen Shaw who are responsible for heists involving the use and theft of military equipment, and they may or may not be involved with Toretto's crew. I believe Toretto may be the character played by Vin Diesel in the movie, or maybe the blonde guy, who I cannot really remember that well, to be honest. The graphics of the game are really not up to scratch when comparing to any other racing title on the PS3. They are absolutely terrible and come across more like an early PS2 title with a bit of turtle wax, or maybe even an iOS game. Actually, speaking about iOS, the game even offers 3 stars to achieve per mission, which are a pretty popular trait among iOS titles like Angry Birds and Cut the Rope. Chances are this game was originally programmed for mobile devices before Activision stuck its nose in and smelt cash across the console board. Anyways, the character models are the stuff of second year university student level, and the cars, while better than the characters, really don't offer much in terms of eye candy. The music across the game is a drone of bland dubstep mixed with random hip hop tracks, none of which are really recognisable. The game includes 2 different game modes. The first is the Fast and Furious mode, which we will simply call Story, and the second is a challenge mode, which lets you take on the world and a number of challenges, which are really just parts of the story mode with either a point system or a type of time trial element added in. The story mode, however, is where the meat of the game is. You will play as a few different members of the crew as Agent Fuenta fills in Hobbs regarding the operation. As she tells Hobbs some background on someone, you will be lunged into their driver's seat and will be expected to complete the mission she is describing. These missions include your general racing with a teammate, holding off cops, truck jacking, and a few others. I should note here that the story can be played with a friend via the local only co-op mode, but since my girlfriend wasn't all interested in taking part in this life-changing event, I really didn't get to try this feature out, and thus I was stuck with the AI counterpart. Now, with the bulk of this game being set in a driver's seat, you would expect that the driving mechanic would be almost flawless. I mean, it is 2013 and even older generation games feel pretty damn great. So you'll forgive me if I expected a lot more than what this game had to offer in the driving stakes. It is a floaty, unresponsive mess. The cars hardly feel like they're attached to the road, and thus trying to take sharp turns and avoid traffic is a real issue here. You'll find yourself massively overcompensating when trying to perform the game's corner drifting manoeuvre, and will therefore be smashing into the side barriers and oncoming traffic pretty much all the time. There are apparently 50 cars to use in this game, and from what I have tried, most of them feel the same, and the rest are just completely unusable, like the Jeep, which did nothing but force me to snake around the track like I was playing Mario Kart. There are car performance modifications for the cars, which you can unlock by completing missions, but if I'm honest, they really didn't seem to make a notable difference. Oh, you can also modify the look of your car, but since you can only change the paint, rim colour and add a decal, there isn't really much point. All the vehicles in the game, even 18-wheeler type trucks, are fitted with nitrous oxide, and rather than giving the car a thrilling 20 seconds or more of horsepower boost madness depending on how you perform like the Burnout series, you are treated to a tiny 2 seconds, which seemingly works or doesn't work at random, as normal pedestrian cars will sometimes still stay in front of you even after blasting the laughing gas. Phew. Well, that's the driving out of the way, let's move on to some of the shooting and hijacking, shall we? As previously stated, in some parts of the game, you're required to keep the police and enemies occupied with gunfire while you make your getaway. Now this is where the co-op section really comes into play, as you're able to switch between driver or gunner mid-game with the AI filling in the alternative spot. You will use a few different types of weaponry to keep the bad guys off your tail. 3 examples include a machine gun, a grappling hook and an energy pulse rifle. I found the shooting segments to be pretty dire if I'm honest, because the machine gun doesn't really feel like it's actually doing any damage, and if it wasn't for the health bar above the cars, I really wouldn't think it was actually doing anything of use. The grappling hook is a strange one, as when you do grab a car and in turn pull it along, you're then open to an attack until the car you're pulling is blown away, making the gun pretty much useless most of the time. The pulse rifle is probably the worst of the lot, because it does have a lot of promise, but it's just not implemented properly. Basically, you need to charge your shot by holding the fire button while targeting the car you want to attack. This is annoying, however, as obviously your AI counterpart is snaking around the traffic, and thus it can be really hard to hold the crosshair on their vehicle of choice, and thus again you are open to attack until you can charge your gun enough to take them out. The pulse rifle, however, does do a good job of highlighting the one merit that I would give this game, and that is the destructibility of the cars. I think these scenes will show it best.
Check the mic and make sure it sounds right.
Hijacking only happens now and again, but it does crop up a few times, so I decided to talk about it. Basically, you drive up next to the vehicle you need to hijack, stand on the roof of your car while the vehicle apparently drives itself sometimes, press X a bunch of times to keep balanced, jump onto the vehicle of choice, press X a bunch of times again, avoid enemy fire, climb on the roof if needed, press X a lot of times again, climb across to the driver or passenger side of the car, press X again, and then climb in and remove the driver. Hijack complete. Yeah, nothing really amazing there. Let's move on to the AI, shall we? The AI partner, who is really bad at driving when you're shooting and really bad at shooting when you're driving, is also understandably completely crap at using the grappling hook. There is a mission when you need to pull down 7 communication towers with the grappling hook. Now in this mission you are being shot at by enemies, and so you need your AI partner to do what he does best, and that is shoot the grappling hook and take the towers down. However, you can drive right up to the tower in a straight line and the guy will miss the tower over and over again. Another bad point about the AI is the police. In some missions you are required to escape from the police with you in one car and the AI partner in another. However, the AI is only interested in you. So if I'm driving in car A, the police are on my arse like flies around shit. And I decide, okay, I'll shoot over to car B, who is behind and completely free of police. After doing the switch, the police will suddenly leave car A completely and all go for car B. At the same time, car A will for some reason do a 180 and drive towards your position, even though you're heading straight in their direction. So if you then decide to shoot back to car A, he will be facing in the opposite direction and heading straight into the police. Utter nightmare. Mission continuity is another issue in this game. In some missions, cars magically seem to change, and there isn't a lot to tell the player how you got from one mission to another. Pretty annoying. In conclusion, the game is terrible. There's absolutely no fun to be found in this title. From its stupid AI and unlikable characters to its early PS2-esque graphics, the game really is horrible to play and see. Other than the unlockables, including cars, movie screenshots and in-game concept art, there really isn't anything to pull you back into this game if you do somehow manage to reach the end of it. The secondary mission stars are at times just impossible, and I find it hard to believe anyone will go out of their way to obtain them. I have saved the best complaint for last, however, and that is the loading times. I kid you not, from cutscene to gameplay it takes just over 2 minutes of staring at this loading screen. When I first played this game I thought it had crashed, to which coincidentally it did a few times during saving, but that's beside the point. I don't think I have played a game since the PlayStation that took this long to load. The thing that frustrates me most here is that I cannot figure out what the hell it's even loading. A small track with some traffic and a stupid AI? 2 minutes? Come on now. Just like the movies, I can see the only two audience for this title are young teenage boys who have a Ferrari with a bikini-wearing lady draped across it as their desktop backgrounds, and the type of men who feel the need to have a tribal tattoo emblazoned down their arm. Basically, the developers have taken Burnout and Need for Speed Underground, removed the fun parts completely, pissed all over the bad parts and smooshed them together, and then repackaged it. A terrible addition to an already terrible series.